Welcome to video 6 of series 3, and when you write code it's really common that you'll always find a case where you need to delay a bit of code for some reason. I'll show two ways to do that. One is to write a coroutine and the other is to use the invoke. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this canvas here. So after say a couple of seconds, what I want to happen is to deactivate this canvas, to actually deactivate the game object. So when you deactivate a game object, it's there in memory, but it's disabled. And of course you can't see it, and none of the scripts on it will be doing anything as well. None of the components will be doing anything as well when you disable a game object. So that's what I'm going to do through code, and I'm just going to apply a small delay as well. So I'll go back to the welcome script, and oh, by the way, that script, the other one that I wrote in the beginning to just show about the namespace stuff, I'll just go ahead and delete that. So I'll get rid of that. Okay, go back and open up the one that I've been working on, and then I'll add in some new code. So what I'm going to do is that after I've had this welcome message, after it's been set, in this function, I'm going to run another method and just disable the game object, disable that canvas itself. So first of all, I'm just going to make a new variable here. I'll just call it public game object. So I'm going to disable a game object, public game object, canvas welcome. Alright. And this is going to get set in the inspector over here. So canvas welcome, and I can rename that. I don't have to, but I do actually. When I have more than one canvas in the scene, I do rename them, so I don't have to. Alright, so I'll just slot that in so I don't forget to do it later. And that's the game object itself, all of this inside of it as well. Okay, so now that I've got I've set a reference to it, well, I need to disable it. So I'll make a new method for doing that. I'll call it disable canvas. Okay. And what I will then say is that canvas welcome dot set active. And you set the value, it's telling us what to do, activates, deactivates the game object, and the value, activate or deactivation of that object, and it requires a type of bool. It's a boolean, and a boolean is true or false. So I'm going to say set active false, and this will disable the game object. So this is how you disable game objects, and if you were enabling, you would just put true. Okay? If I can type, right, true. So that's what you would do if you were enabling it. Okay, so I'm disabling, so I'll do that. Now I need to call it. So I could call it here, for example. I can call it after I've done this sort of stuff. I've set that text message. It's a good place to call it. So disable canvas. Now there's a problem with this, which you'll see. So if I run it, bang, it's gone. Alright, so it gets disabled immediately. Of course it will, because I'm running that piece, that instruction, immediately. So I'll start with the simpler one, invoking. I don't use this too often, invoke. So you could invoke the function, so it's the capital I, invoke, and it needs the name of the method. So you actually have to type in the name. It's with a string. So you have to put in the quotation marks. What I just did is I copied the name so I wouldn't get it wrong. And the next parameter it requires, the next argument, it needs a float time. A float is basically a number with lots of decimal places. So you can have lots and lots of decimals. So this is a float. And something to note when you write float. So, okay, say for example, I want it to disappear after 4.5 seconds. So 4.5, oops, 4.5. You must put F. Floats, you must always write F at the end. If you don't, you'll have an error. Okay, and then I can do it this way. Okay, so now I'll invoke this function after 4.5 seconds. So I'll run that. It'll show, and then After a certain amount of time, there you go, it's gone. So it gets deactivated. And what I'll do next then is to prepare now a coroutine instead. So there's a disadvantage of invoke. I can't actually pass in anything. So I can't pass in a value into invoke. Say, for example, if it took a float, some number, I'm just making something up. If it took something in and then you use that to process that number and then do something with it, you can't do that with invoke. So then it's no use. So I don't need that anymore. I'll get rid of that. So I don't use invoke too much, but just so that if you have a function, you're not passing anything in, then it's fine. You can just do that. How about I turn this into a coroutine? So say IEnumerator. Oops, spelling correctly. IEnumerator. So look for this one. Okay. And just hit tab. Okay. So now I can do something a bit different. Alright. So I need to, one of the things with a coroutine, you must have a return statement of some kind inside of it. You must have a return instruction. Right, so this is something you just have to memorize, that this is how it looks. When you want to add a delay, you say yield return new wait for seconds, and you put in the number of seconds, so say 3.5 seconds. This is something that you'll just learn and memorize because you'll do it lots and lots and lots, and you'll just memorize it eventually. Now that's the coroutine set up. What's going to happen is when this is called, it will wait for 3.5 seconds and then carry out this instruction right here. To call a coroutine, you say start coroutine. Okay. And then the bracket, and then say disable canvas. Now it is a method, so you must put in its own brackets too. And then the closing one, semicolon, and now it will call. Alright, so if I go back to Unity and press play, after 3.5 seconds, the canvas will be disabled. And you see there, it's been unchecked now. That's it. So it's the same thing. I can enable it while playing in Unity. But that's what all I'm doing. I'm just pressing the check mark by code. Alright. So that's done. Now, I do want to talk about something about passing in parameters. So all methods, you can put something in them. So you can pass in stuff. So for example, a float, and I can call this variable anything I want, float wait time, and now there's an error because it needs something. You can see that my coroutine, my method here, requires a float as an input into it, and I want to make use of it here too. Obviously, logically, I don't need to put in 3.5 there anymore. I can put in here wait time. Okay, and now I can just type 3.5 here, don't forget the F, and then run it. Now another way is I could just make a variable called private float wait time is equal to 3.5 seconds, and then I didn't need to do this, I don't need any inputs, and I can just call it here as well. And that's just another way of doing it. Many times you do need to pass in stuff into our methods to carry out some specific actions, and you'll see plenty of examples of that in Series 3. Okay, so this is it. So now I'll start a coroutine. So after I've played the welcome message, so my welcome message, after it sets the message, it is then going to start this coroutine to disable the canvas, and it will carry out this instruction after 3.5 seconds. So I'll just play that, and you'll see that after 3.5 seconds it's gone. Okay, so that's it. So in this video you saw how to delay code. It's an important thing that you need to know, and you will do many times. And you saw how to invoke a function as well, and that is also simple too, but you just have to remember with invoke you can't pass in parameters, so then it's not so useful for that. Then you really do need a coroutine where you can pass in something and have it get processed. Okay, well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and move on to the next video where there'll be a lot more interesting stuff I'll be talking about. Alright, thanks for watching.